여기 계셔가지고
I
시작하면
wish
안
we
돼.
could
그냥 쓰다듬으면
learn more about that, and I wish I could learn more about that from the talks today. Okay.
Hi, Professor. Hi. Hi.
앞으로
Hi again. Am I in the right room?
좀더
Where are you now? Where are you now?
I'm in the office. Let me show you the background. Sorry, because we are supposed to be in Jeju Island, so I have this background that Jeju Island.
Oh, good.
Actually, I'm in my office. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
But I
Are we
hope I
all?
can,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, yeah, we are all here. Right, okay, it's very nice to see you again. Fengang,
Yes.
and you see the Sakurai, and finally, the last, the Yusopian, not least, actually, Xian. Oh, it's Pat Christian.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hi,
Yeah.
I just
Wait,
saw
where are you
someone.
now, the Pat?
Pardon?
Where are you?
I am in Buffalo, New York, United States. So I actually am going to turn off my video and eat my breakfast. It's very early.
Okay. Oh, is it morning, is it?
It's
Early
morning. It's 8 a.m. 8 in the morning here.
Same in the Fengang. Is the same in the Purdue?
Yeah. I'm on East Coast time.
Right, okay.
Yeah, 8 o'clock.
Yeah. Right, okay. It's time is almost 9 o'clock. It's time to start. I am Francis Jeju Song from the Kyunghee University Seoul, and there's one. Oh, Gangwon fan. It's nice to see you again. Right, okay, yeah. Okay, I will introduce myself to you briefly. I am Professor Francis Jeju Song from the Kyunghee University, and I'm now the president of the EASSSR, and let's turn to the next to this Fengang. Would you please introduce yourself briefly?
Oh,
Yep.
so I'm Feng Gang Yang. I'm at Purdue University. What else do you want to see? Okay. Should I start my presentation or
No,
after?
not yet. After the to the tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the past president of EASSSR. Really happy to be with all of you today.
Right, okay. And then Professor Roy, please.
I'm Yoshiji Sakurai from Hokkaido University. I'm a field worker, so I'm not the technician of the statistics. But at this time, I try to show the result of the statistics, but I have not the confidence at all. And sorry, I wear very casual wear because Hokkaido is very hot today, 33 degrees Celsius. Temperature looks like a Jeju Island. So thank you.
Right, okay, the professor.
Yes, I am Ko Shen-su from Taiwan National Taiwan University. I am the opposite of Professor Sakurai. I'm a technician. I don't know much about religious study, but I play around with the data. So today's presentation, I might use a language that are not familiar to myself, and probably you will misunderstood what I'm saying. But hopefully, with the data that I can show you what I did and provide some contribution to the measurement of the religiosity. Okay, thank you.
Right, okay. You will teach me very much. And then, okay, then Professor Yang, please.
My name is Xiaozhao Yosef Yang. I'm currently an associate professor at Sun Yat-sen University in Guangzhou, China. But at the template, you guys will see that I submitted a paper as assistant professor at Murray State University because the research I did in this with Dr. Yang was done in 2018 and 2020 when I was a AP at Murray State University. I'm very happy to be here and look forward to hearing a lot of interesting conversation about measurement and techniques. Very happy to join all of you.
Okay, thank you. And Professor Koki Shimeji, please.
Sorry for being late because I was presenting the other session in the room 12. I'm Koki Shimizu. Assistant professor at Hokkaido University. Actually, I just have become an assistant professor in this April. And I'm basically working on the survey data analysis on the cross-sectional data set. And I'm interested in like, developing the measurement of East Asian religiosity. It's nice to meet you all, and I'm very looking forward to listen to your presentation in this session.
Okay, thank you very much. And these six are all the presenters this session. Okay. Shall I also listen to the other participants because we have enough time. So, Professor Fan, would you please introduce yourself very briefly? Sorry, could you open the microphone?
Hi, I'm Ganghua Fan. I work in Jeju University in Taiwan, and I'm interested in study the influence of religiosity on subjective well-being. And nice to see you all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And Professor Wu, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can show myself right now because I'm eating.
All right, okay. Okay, yeah, okay. And as a Professor Vara, could you hear me? Vara, no. And
yes, I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, okay, please. Introduce yourself very briefly, please.
Okay. My name is Professor Vala. I am a professor of political science at Loyola University in Maryland, and my specialty is looking at the politics of religion and state, and I'm very excited to join you all this morning. For me, it's morning.
Okay. Thank you. And the Christian?
Yes, good morning also. I'm professor at Canisius College in Buffalo, another Jesuit institution, and I'm a part of a larger project studying mega churches in the global south. So we have research teams in the Philippines and South Korea and Indonesia, and I'm on the quantitative side of things, helping with the survey, so I'm very interested in just questions of how to measure religiosity, so I'm excited to be here. I will also be eating my breakfast, so I'm going to go out, but I'm looking forward to the presentations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And the Professor Lee Yongnan, can you hear me? Yongnan? Professor Lee Yongnan? No. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's so. I feel time to start. So we will. They ask the first presenter is the Fenggang Yang. He will present the measuring religiosity of the global East. Before that, you see, this presentation, all 5 presentations, is based upon the sort of study carried out by the Purdue University the year before last year. So we will listen first from the Professor Fenggang Yang. Thank you.
All right, so now you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Francis, for chairing this session. Yeah, this is like a pre-test of a survey that we hope to do in East Asia, in East Asian societies. And one major reason that we developed this project is for the EASSSR to have something that we can work together. And when we work together, we stay together. So as a new association, when I was thinking about the project, and I thought it would be good to have a cross-national comparative study of religion in the global East, and not global South, but global East. Okay, let's see. Okay, talking about surveys, I think there are the existing questions in surveys on religiosity is very much Eurocentric or American-centric. That the questions designed is really to measure religiosity in these Western societies. It's belief, belonging, and behavior, the 3 Bs are commonly used, but those 3 Bs are really reflecting the majority of people in Western societies. Monotheist religions, and one God, the God, and respondents must choose one identity, religious identity, and also behavior focusing on church attendance, or by extension is attendance of the synagogue and the mosque too. But this, I would say this Eurocentric or American-centric questions, just like a fishing net in Atlanta, that may not be able to capture the fish in the Pacific. So, because Asian religiosity is pretty different from these monotheistic religions. And we also see Asian countries, Asian societies have adopted most of the survey questions, but also individually in each society, they developed some unique questions, particularly to that one society. It's good to see those questions. You know, there are surveys in Japan, in Taiwan, or in China have some unique questions to that particular society. But those unique questions make it very difficult to make comparisons across different societies. As a result, East Asian religiosity is often considered a unique case when Asia, and it's a unique case. It's very much an inscrutable enigma. So that's the part of the reason to develop this surveys on East Asia, on global East religiosity. A global East means not only East Asian societies, but also East Asian diasporas, like Asian Americans, or Asians in Southeast Asia, and Asians in Europe or Australia. And global East religiosity does have some commonalities, and of course, there are also distinctiveness, or even unique to one particular society. But there are some common things. Religion, the concept, is an imported and a modern concept in East Asian societies. And it began with Japan, then Korea, China, and other societies. As a result, because it's an imported modern concept, It really first happened to the elites. The more educated people understand what is religion, or their understanding of religion is still different from the other people. Most people are still not that familiar with the, what's the exact meaning of religion. So when you ask about religion, they may not be able to tell what do you want to ask. But all these East Asian societies have rich tradition of rituals and beliefs, and they are widespread. And because multiple religions coexist in a society, there's simply no one majority religion. And also in East Asia, there are many old traditions actually became known as New Age spiritualities in the West. But also when people in the West talk about East Asian religion, they often talk about pre-modern East Asia. But in contemporary East Asia, or among the global East peoples, there's increasing presence of monotheist religions. That's a fact we have to acknowledge. So overall, I like to call for a reorientation, treating the global East as the norm, as normal, rather than a special case in theory of religion. Okay, I hope I need to, I prepared too many slides, need to go faster. So we developed a set of survey questions based on, first reviewing all available surveys in East Asia, but also in the West, and then also developed some new questions that have not been asked in surveys. And we had a conference, got experts from East Asia. Several of you came to Purdue to have the meeting in December of 2019. We also had several experts of Asian American religion, and also Pew Research Center, several people came. So we had a very good discussion, and we thought we would launch a survey soon, but then the pandemic hit in early 2020. The questionnaire, we do have those divided into belief, belonging, behavior, but we have, again, new questions. I guess I'll show those questions, or some of the answers to those questions in the later slides. Okay, I'll move. Okay, so we tested this set of questions at Purdue University in April of 2020. All right, so because that's a special time in April, the university moved from in-person classes to online. It was quite in a moment for transition, uncertainties. In that environment, and with our incentives to do the survey, we got about 31% response rate. And that included international students from China, over 800, and from South Korea, and from Taiwan. Those larger student bodies, and also included other Asian Pacific countries. Here we particularly highlight Japan and Hong Kong. Japan only had 27 respondents, students responded, but it's a higher response. There are fewer Chinese students at Purdue University. Similarly, Hong Kong, only 22 responded. And we also had 37 from Vietnam responded to the survey. share some preliminary results. First, about religiosity. We allow people to choose more than one religion. You can choose as many religions as you like. There are 9 possibilities. But as you can see here from this slide, 38% are atheists, have no religion, and 36.5% says neither religious nor atheist. Then we have Protestant, Buddhist, Catholic, Taoist, Confucian, folk religion, Shinto, Muslim, shaman, and other. And this is the, if you count every answer, this is not by respondent, but by how many people choose at least one religion, and this is the percentage. So it's more than the respondents. But most people, if they choose religion, they only choose one religion. Very few choose more than one religion. 32 choose 2 religions, and 4 people choose 3 religions. Then one person chose 4, and one chose 9 religions. And here is the combination of those who choose more than one religion. And there are Taoist, Buddhist, there are Catholic, Protestants, those 6, I think, all from Korea. Then Buddhist, Protestant, Confucian, Taoist, the different combinations. Actually, if you glance quickly, you may see many of these double or multiple identities are between Buddhist and something else. So it's a Buddhist and other religion. We did look at by different countries, but because of the small sample size of students from Hong Kong and Japan, we may ignore that slide, that chart, because it's less reliable when you have the small size of the sample. And look at China, South Korea, Taiwan. We see, of course, in students from South Korea, there are more Protestant. Taiwan is also more Protestant than anything else. In China, it's also, there are more Protestants than any others. Then there are Buddhist, Catholic. Okay. Another new feature of the survey is we allow people to answer another question is, how strongly do you believe in each of the religions? And I know this can be overwhelming with so many charts on one screen. I guess you can all focus on the top bar in each of the 5, and you see those dark green is believe very much. There are the Buddhists believe Buddhism very much, right? That's understandable. And Catholics believe Catholicism very much. But if you compare across the 5, you see the Protestants have a stronger belief of Protestantism more than the other religions. This is Taoism, this is Confucianism. Yes, that's something interesting. If you are Protestant, you tend to believe in Protestantism stronger than people of Buddhists who believe Buddhism. We also asked the question whether you have had any formal ritual of joining a religion. Here it also shows the pattern. Protestants have the Protestant ritual of baptism, Catholics and Buddhists, but the Protestants are clearly showing a different pattern. This is a related question, but different. We ask so many religion questions, right? I think part of the pre-test, this testing is to see whether we can get rid of some of the questions that are not that useful. But here is the question is, which religion do you practice most? People can practice multiple religions, but which religion do you practice most? Again, of course, Buddhists practice Buddhism the most, but still you can see some pattern, especially here, those who claim to be atheist or agnostic, and many of them still practice Buddhism the most. And also the people who claim to have two or more religions, they practice Buddhism the most. Which one of the following statements is closest to your view? The existence of God, or cannot be sure. So here is whether you believe in multiple gods or one true God, or can't be sure or not exist. Here we see Buddhists, other tend to be polytheist, believe in multiple gods, but some of them do believe in one God, one true God. The others maybe are not surprising. Which of this do you believe in or think is real? Heaven, hell, ghosts, it's a whole set of belief questions. Protestants are clearly believing more likely to believe in heaven, hell, and demons. But Buddhists Buddhists and those who have multiple religions tend to believe in karma or in the predestined religions, and the other more Asian beliefs or beliefs. Yeah, here only beliefs. And this one is religious experience. I know this is even too much. There are 9 charts on this one slide. Just to show, we include a whole set of questions on religious experience. Speaking in tongues is one of the most common ones. But this one is you felt a familiar place, but you had never been there. This is marginal, whether it's religious, spiritual, or not spiritual. But there's showing that more people have had that feeling. How often do you participate in formal religious rituals? That's a whole set of questions, as we can see again. Buddhist, Catholic, Protestant participate in more formal rituals than Confucian, Taoist, yeah, we do have a few Muslims in the total sample. Among the formal rituals, I think is this ancestor veneration stand out. There are so many actually participate once or twice or 3 or 4 times a year, including Catholics, Buddhists. They have had this formal ancestor veneration rituals. The others are fewer. Small group activities, whether you gather at home or workplace or public place, many people do religion at home. So Asian religion, maybe one distinctive characteristic is home-based religion. And of course, many also do at religious sites. How often do you do any of the activities by yourself? Individually, practicing prayer, chanting, or meditation. These are the 2 common ones. Many Protestants pray and many Buddhists meditate, but also Catholics do prayers, and Catholics do meditation a lot. This also could be interesting to compare across different countries, only that we need to be conscious that there are not many Japanese or Hong Kong students, so you have to keep that in mind. But overall, South Koreans pray more often than other people from students from other societies. And again, meditation. There are more South Koreans who do meditation than students from other societies. We include those questions: individual religiosity. Okay, here. Whether do people wear earring or some items, carry some items with themselves? Buddhist items, Buddhist items, Catholic items, Protestant items, and who do those? So the Buddhist items, not only Buddhists wear, but the agnostic, atheist, multiple religious identities wear that, but also some Protestants do admit that they wear Buddhist items. So this just show, across board, many. There are not many Taoists identified with Taoism, but many people wear Taoist items. Again, ancestor veneration is a common thing. There are people carrying or wearing something in relation to ancestor veneration. Protestants do the least, but still some do that. All right, so the last thing is about the veneration of ancestors. How important are these in your life? This is to venerate ancestors regularly. Here, the blue bars shows who say either fairly important or important, very important. It shows Buddhists expressed this agreement with this statement more than the others, but also many Catholics think it's important to venerate ancestors. We did break this down to different societies. Again, focus on China, South Korea, and Taiwan. We see in China, there are more people expressing ancestor veneration is important more so than in South Korea. Perhaps not that different from Taiwan. This is the last thing added, the festivals. We have a whole set of questions on festivals, but here I only highlight three. One is family gathering. Okay. Three is Lunar New Year or New Year, or National Day or Christmas. One is a more traditional Asian festival. One is a political national festival. One is a Christian or Western. Here it shows how many people do anything during those three kinds of festivals or holidays. Or the three most common things. One is a family gathering, one is a religious rituals, or having special food. Most people don't do anything religious, having religious rituals, except for Christmas, actually. Yeah, that is a religious thing. But family gathering is a lot, and also having some special food. So again, religion in East Asia maybe as a family thing more than as a separate social sphere. We will see whether this will be true when we do the survey in East Asia. I have to quickly come to the conclusion. So we designed this set of new questions, and it shows ancestor veneration and the family values are perhaps something really distinct in East Asia or among East Asians. Okay, I have to stop. Thank you. All right. welcome questions if anyone wants to see the questions. We translated all the questions into Korean, Japanese, Chinese, the simplified characters, and the traditional characters. We hoped we could do that with Vietnamese as well, but we haven't done so.
Okay, thank you very much, Fenga. And any question, please? Comments? Yeah.
Questions? Ray Wong from National Children's University.
Oh, yes, please.
Dr. Yang, just curious, how about the age difference? Because some of the students might be graduate students, or visiting scholars. How about those age and
of course, a slight difference. We did look at the age difference, but not a lot. The age range is too small. Yeah. When we did some analysis on some questions, age does not make a very significant difference in most of the questions. Specific, each question can be different.
All right, okay.
The service first developed in English, so it's then translated into other languages.
Yep. Yeah, first it was developed in English and then later translated into Korean, Japanese, and yeah, there's 3 different languages: English, Japanese, Korean.
4. Yeah, including English, then that's 4. Actually, many of the questions we translated back and forth.
Yes.
We first have the English, then translate into other languages, then had discussion in those languages, then we translate back and try to change the general question in English. So it's many rounds of translation.
Yeah. Okay. There's a message from. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, right. We would be happy to share the questions, if you promise to give us feedback and suggestions. And also if you look for opportunities to use the survey questions, finding some funding or finding some opportunity to do the survey, add some of the questions.
Kastan, are you going to raise any question or comment?
Yes, I did have a question if there's time. I wanted to ask, given that this survey is done of international students, my question is, to what extent do you think that students' religiosity is comparable to the religiosity of people back home? I could imagine that their religiosity has perhaps increased when they're away from their social networks and family, or that they've been influenced by, for example, Protestant churches in this Midwest setting. Do you have any sense of that?
Yeah, we do. That's why we do not want to generalize the findings here back to East Asian societies. We do see there are more people identifying with Protestant Christianity than the other religions, but that may be because of the location. If we do this in Asia, this may be different, especially for people from in Taiwan, in China. I don't think Protestantism is the largest religion. And for Japanese, there are several identified with Catholicism and non-Protestant. That's, we don't think that represents the Japanese population in general. This is more for testing whether those questions are good to ask. And we can, if we generalize, we only generalize to international students in the U.S.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah, there's another the things that we have to understand is that when they're talking about Korean students studying at Purdue, they are not all coming from the Korean Peninsula. There's some portions of them are still living in America well, their parents actually the Korean American, and some of them were born in America. Even if their nationality and the emotion the factors are probably the Korean. Yeah, so not all of them are coming from Korea to America to have further studies, right? Okay.
Yeah, actually, Francis, because it's hard to identify Asian Americans, for our survey, we asked specifically whether only ask the students who hold a passport from Korea, Japan, China, Taiwan, Hong Kong. So this survey does not include Korean Americans or Chinese Americans.
Yeah, maybe some the students with their own Korean the passport, but probably but some of them are still has long been living in America as their own traditions, even if their number is really rare. Right. Okay. Any other questions, please? Okay. I think we need to turn to the second presentation. It's me, isn't it? So, okay. Thank you very much, Finger. Okay, it's my turn. I will try to. So many. Is the graph? Can you see?
Yes, we see it.
Okay. Right. Okay. As Finger mentioned many times, my focus was actually given to the category of religious norms among these 144 Korean students studying at Purdue University, because the 144 is not the sample is quite small, very tiny, but in some respect that reflect some religious and or spiritual dispositions of Korean young adults and the similar age groups. And measuring religiosity of the religious norm among Korean respondents, almost all relevant statistic significances are very low in regard to respondents of respondents of the attendance is both formal and informal ritual participation activities, except some activities like meditation and yoga, which are statistically significant, each 4.35% and 10%, and the degree of the belief in both formal and informal religions, except the belief in the Buddhism, which is relatively higher than the other. That is 20 points higher than. So I recorded all the items in accordance with the two modes of categories of religious and religious norms to distinguish the differences and make clear to know the differences between these two different categories. So formal, the religious, includes all kinds of believers in formal religion or informal religion. The latter, the religious norm, include the atheist and agnostic, shown in the original data set, carried out by the Purdue University. And so dividing the participants' activities of the religious norms into two categories, religiosity-related activities and spirituality-related activities. So the former represents the formal, institutional, communal, ritualistic congregation attending activities and so. On the other hand, the latter relates usually to the spiritual and mental physical activities like the so-called MBS, mind, body, and the spirit, whose characteristics are informal, individualistic, non-ritualistic, and anything like that in terms of activist mode. So assuming that the religious norms activities category reveals such a spiritual phenomena as believing without belonging, or the spiritual but not religious. So that's the distribution among 144 respondents at the shown in the university. That's shown in from the Fengang's presentation. That the orange color is percent, and the blue color is the number, frequencies. So, as Fengang mentioned, the bit less than 40% are Protestants, and then 48% is religious nones, and the others Catholics and the Buddhisms. The other religions is really, really small compared to the other cases like China and Taiwan, and in some sense Japan as well. So now, as I mentioned in previous pages, we include the religious norms is composed of both atheists and agnostics. So now, as I mentioned earlier, I focused on the religious norms rather than the religious, because religious norms, like the concept, like the believing without the belonging and the spiritual but not religious. Now the concept of these religious norms are becoming more and more significantly important, because if we stick to the very conventional idea of religion, as Fengang mentioned earlier, then I think that we cannot extend our understanding of spirituality, which we are getting from some people without the conventional concept of religion. Only you see the many typically developed questionnaires, what is your religion? Then is many the formalized religions are listed, and then finally at the bottom there's one or two columns saying agnostic or the religious norms. But actually, if we focus more deeply and fundamentally by using the qualitative research, the methodologies, then I think we can also find some kind of religious or the spiritual kind of elements from those who identify themselves as religious norms or the agnostic. So that's why I'm focusing on the religious norms among these 144 Korean students at Purdue. Now, the religious worship or service attendance group, that's the orange color is the religious norms. You see, just 7%, the Catholic, and 1%. Protestant is 5. This one, do keep in your mind. This one is that the degree to which the non-religious nuns attending, that each one of different religious services. You see, so again, the Buddhist 7%, the Catholic 1%, Protestant once a year or 5%, and the Confucianism is 5.8, and ancestral rights is much higher than that. It's one or two times a year. It's 6.8%. Or the commemorating patriotic materials is 8.7, and so. So such religions as Taoism, Islam seem to be good. I mean, the shamanistic exorcism and the folk rituals have nothing to do with this age group, Korean, the young adults specifically, in terms of religious and cultural context. And so it is quite difficult to regard them as formal religious activities, given that all of the above 6 examples, shows participation as many as 3 to 4 times a year. The reason why the participation in ancestral rites is even slightly higher than the above 6 seems to be that it is actually considered a meaningful event of harmony between families. Now, the informal religious activities, like the informal activities at home, at the workplace and public place, and so on. So 5.9, nothing, and visiting ancestral graves are 6.4, and the modern nature, the nature, and the religious sites is quite, the statistical significance is quite low. The reason why the ancestral grave participation activities are slightly high seems to be the same as the case of the ancestral rites above. In all other cases, the statistical significance is below. And individual activities. This one is very, very important for us to understand because, as I mentioned, 5.9, and the meditation is 8.7, and the yoga, hypobaric the breathing, the yin and yang training. So look, the scale is wide. Daily or almost daily, 5%. Weekly or almost weekly, 4%. Monthly or almost monthly, nearly 3%. 3 or 4 times a year, and 5 is nearly 6%. 1 or 2 times a year, nearly 6%. And the others, except this meditation and this yoga, hypogastric breathing, and the yin and yang, all the others are quite small. Prayer is a little bit not a 5 like that. Daily or almost daily, nothing. It's just 1 point, nothing. And scripture reading, like a Bible reading and so on, something like that is just nothing. You see? And the fasting, nothing. Divination or fortune telling, quite low. So these two, the meditation and the yoga, even if it is individual activities, doing something, like visiting or some worship services or the Buddhist worship services, but this meditation and yoga is particularly, the meditation, yoga, the hypogastric breathing and the yin-yang training are more frequently participatory than most other activities. The main reason is that such activities are related to the activities that explore or promote inner mind and the mental health of individuals, namely like the mind, body, and the spirit. Among the religiously related activities, these 2 types of individual participation activities, the meditation and the yoga and something like that, are found to be the most frequent. This is similar to the level and the pattern of the spirituality related activities being discussed later. And belief in the other religions, Buddhism. Look, religious norms are more friendly to the Buddhism compared to other religions. For example, there's one, considerably believe in general, nearly 3%. don't much believe, don't believe, never heard of God. And the Catholic, they believe in general, don't much believe, don't believe. Protestant, believe in general, quite low, don't much believe and believe. So participation activities in these three religions are relatively high, especially in Buddhism. The main reason for this seems to be that Buddhism has a non-exclusive and tolerant religious disposition compared to other religions. The participation in other religions are all very low. Among 144 students, Confucianism only 3%, the Taoism 2, Islam just 2, Shinto nobody, the folk belief 1, Shamanism 1, and other religions nobody. That's one. Now we need to put much more the focus on these dimensions, spirituality related activism of the religious norms. The attitude to the idea of God and the supernatural being, God. This is the capital God, isn't it? It's the deistic God, the Catholicism or the Protestant God. It's not very high, but supernatural being. This one, I think, the Fengan you mentioned in your presentation before. The Korean students are much concerned about this supernatural kind of things. So supernatural being, nearly 30%. No spirit being or supernatural being or power, nearly 6%. And the heaven, the belief, and 13%. The hell, nearly 11%. You see, compared to this one, the capital goal, that is the belief in the heaven, the hell, or particularly ghost, devil and demon, and Taoist God. Karma. Karma is particularly quite really high, it's nearly 20%. Karma. I will explain why later. And the fate and destiny is really high, 25%. Feng Shui, 24%. Shouldn't I say? Astrology, 7%. Oh, I couldn't translate this, the Sujajam into the English. Well, you can teach me. Right? And this one, prophecy, well, not very high, 4%. Pajajam is 1%. I could translate this one as well. And Oiza the bold is 1% only. It's not popularized in Korean society, but I don't know whether the young adults students be studying in US are familiar with this one. But the divination sign is 8%. So, as shown above, the religious norms have a relatively higher level about the items of spiritual concept or phenomenon than religiously related activities items. In particular, items such as karma, fate, destiny, feng shui show significantly higher level. The relatively higher interest in these three activities, I mean this one, show that the religious norms of this age group are more interested in this worldly and or naturalistic principles, so rules, than in the transcendental and authoritative ones. So these phenomena have very important implications for our analysis and understanding of the religious spiritual dispositions and their trends, patterns of religious norms in East Asian cultural context. Now, this last, the Confucianistic values, very briefly, obedience to parents, dutiful serving old and learnable parents, obedience to the government officials, and veneration for elders. See, I don't agree at all. 25%. It's really Confucian. It's coming from the filial piety, and there's quite a strong cultural element in Eastern society, particularly in Korean society. this young generation are quite antithetical to this idea of the obedience to the parents. And the dutiful serving or the role of parents don't agree at all, 2%. Entirely agree, 71. And 7.9 and 24. Oh dear. And 5 point. Yep. That's 70, isn't it? Yep. Okay. And obedience to the government officials, I don't agree at all. It's 7.9. Oh, 41.79. And the others, the veneration for elders. Okay, this one I don't agree with all the 5.88%, and entirely agree. 2.94. And wife's dutifulness to her husband, I don't agree at all. And the soul and the ghost exist. It's quite I need to ask a question to the Fengang whether we actually in the private study we have this kind of questionnaire. Okay, later you can let me know. The cycle of birth, death, and the rebirth. Don't agree with. No soul after death. Entirely agree. And I don't agree at all. So being blessed if taking good care of ancestor soul, and being punished if not taking good care of ancestors' soul. Ancestor soul always protect me, whatever I do, and so on. This one I don't agree at all. So as for confusion values associated with the parents and the ancestors, the religious nuns are more resistant than the religious people. Look, this one, particularly look, this one, the religious, but they are more, tended to be more positive compared to this negative non-religious nuns. This one as well. So that this seems to be because the religious nuns prefer less familistic values than the religious. That is, the religious nuns tend to be more individualistic than the religious young adults. Now, by the summary and implications, this analysis is focused on the measuring religiosity and or spirituality of the religious nuns among East Asian young adult systems and American University of Purdue. Overall, their dispositions tend to be of a higher statistical significance in the spirituality-related activities or attitudes than in the religiously-related activities and attitudes. As a result of the analysis, it can be summarized that the value spirituality orientation of East Asian young adults with nuns have the following characteristics. They tend not to be favor the religious and the spiritual values or dispositions reflecting exclusive view or idea of God or gods, nature, and universe. You understand? Exclusive view. They do not like that. And instead, they prefer natural and pantheistic religious, spiritual values or dispositions. They prefer rather the informal, non-ritualistic or individualistic orientation than
Stop. Freeze. Francis, you're not.
Hello, Francis.
Freeze.
she's disappeared.
Yeah, must be the internet. I guess we should, because of time, we should continue. And after he get back, if you have questions for him, then ask him. According to the schedule, who is the next?
Me.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, Professor Sakurai, you could make your presentation.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, here it is.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I was cut off. Where should I start again?
You got near the 2/3 of your last slide. You know, I think you
2/3.
Yeah, only the last 2 points of your conclusion.
Conclusion.
Slide.
All right. Okay. Then I will going back to this one. This one.
Right. The summary. Right.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Okay. I quickly finalize this one. Yeah, they tend not to favor religious and/or the spiritual values or dispositions reflecting exclusive view or exclusive idea of the God, nature, and the universe. They hate that. And instead, they prefer nature and the pantheistic, religious, the spiritual value of dispositions. They prefer rather the informal, non-ritualistic or individualistic orientation than to the former. And the institutional, communal, ritualistic, or congregational in the fields of religion or spirituality, they tend to favor so-called mind-body spirit related spiritual, mental, or physical activities. As a result, their religious and/or spiritual orientations can be seen as having a selective affinity with certain dispositions of East Asian religious tradition. So what I want to argue is that the young adult religious nuns, Korean young adults, even if the small sample cannot represent the whole of the young adult population in Korean society, but there's a meaningful the result we could get from them. So I think we need to take some more deeper steps toward their religiosity and the spirituality. Particularly, I want to put more focus on the religious or spiritual attitudes or activities of the religious nuns of that age groups in the future. Is that all? This is my presentation. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Francis. Yeah, any question for Francis? Or comment?
Oh, there's one through the message. Do you have any explanation? Hang on. Explanation to the high level of English, the response on the question of obey government of Jews. Thank you. Okay, yeah. Okay, okay, I will go back to this one. As the oh yes, there's a confusion of values, isn't it? Proposal. Yeah. Okay, I will go back with the graph. Proposal. There is obedience to the government officials. Yeah, they, the young adults, the religious nuns, they are strongly have objection to the obedience to the government officials. Well, this question was given because Korean society has long been very strong. The Confucianist society. So I think the number one, even among the East Asian societies like China, Japan, and Vietnam, Taiwan, and Hong Kong, and so on. So that's why this question, we expected that the even the younger generations, they could be more inclusive to these kind of questions. But actually, the religious nuns much more, compared to the religious the young adults. So nearly 3 times or 2.5 times of the religious the young adults. Okay, and one more. So the interesting asked about the shamanistic belief, but there was question item: shamanistic practice. Is shamanism a seizable religion in Korea today? Oh no, not at all. So I don't think the major number of the young adult believers they know clearly, the rightly about the shamanism. The good in Korean language. So that's why they are. So that's why they compared to the other forms of religions, the young adult non-believers in this case, they do not know much about good shamanistic exorcism. No. Okay. So the as Feng Gang mentioned that in his presentation, if we take a chance to widen our project, then I think we need to look at first of all look at the possibility of the religious spirituality of these nuns in the East Asian populations. All the East Asian countries, China, Korea, Japan, and Hong Kong, and Taiwan, and so on. Then I think we can find out some different kind of the seminal ideas of the formation of the new concept of religion, more flexibly and more tolerantly. I think the Fengang, you will give us some better the chances in the near future. Okay, this is one more message. Okay, all right. Okay, thank you, Professor Yusuf Yang.
Yeah, about the shamanism, we asked many questions on shamanism, but it didn't show up much in the survey.
No, not much. So in Korean society, my generation or my parents' generation, they are more familiarized with the shamanism, because in the ordinary life circumstances we were able to contact with them very frequently in 1970s and 80s, but not now in the 21st century. So that's why the young adult generations, they really don't much about their shamanism. But only from time to time they visit to the fortune tellers, divination. So when thinking about, we know about the shamanism, then only that's the limited to the boundaries of the divination and the fortune telling, not shamanism. Right. Okay. Now, no questions, and I think that at the end of the all 5 presentations, we will further discuss again. Okay. Let's come to the third presentation, please. And this Professor Sakurai, would you please start your presentation? Thank you.
Okay, I'd like.
You did show screen.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Yep.
So can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Good evening and morning or afternoon. My role is to introduce Japanese case. Before I get into the main topic, I'd like to explain my understanding of this comparative study. Oh, sorry. No. Okay. As you all know, the concept of the region in East Asia was developed through the encounter with Western Christianity. As a result, regions became organized regions to be observed and regulated by the government, and the 3 B's: believe, behave, and belonging were emphasized in the indicators of the religious city. There are doubts in the West about this well discussion when they dealt with invisible religion, diffuse religion, and individualistic spirituality. But what is the relationship between those typology and diffuse religion? C.K. Young pointed out in early days, which diffused into the social institution of the family, education, and social life. This is what I finally consider about this discussion. However, in this presentation, I will limit my discussion to a very limited set of issues. First, comparison of Radio City and Pali student and Hokkaido student. Since the Japanese students in Pali University are very small number, therefore, I collected more data in Japan and compared 2 groups in order to verify the validity of representativeness in Japanese radio city. Second, comparison of Japanese radio city and social consciousness with other East Asian students, which could provide some suggestions to consider multiple radio city in East Asia. I will now explain the basic attribute of the data. The total number of Japanese students at Pali is 26. In contrast, the total number of the students surveyed at several universities, colleges, and nursing schools in Hokkaido area is 364. In terms of the age, Pali students are in their 30s and 40s, while most of the students in Hokkaido are in their late teens and early 20s. In terms of the gender, 57% of the students in Pali are male, while 71% of the students in Hokkaido are female. Japanese university students are almost half male and half female, but junior colleges and nursing schools are almost all female, so there are more females. Now, let's take a look at the religious and social awareness. Feng has already explained this questionnaire, so I skip this slide. Let's start with the bar graph on the left. It seems that students in Hokkaido believe in ancestral worship more than Pali University students. This is in spite of the younger age group. I suppose that students who study abroad have more rational ideas. Students in Hokkaido also believe more in the survival of the soul after death. Regarding the question about social capital, students in Hokkaido have higher social capital than Pali students, but they also feel loneliness. According to the social capital theory, it seems to be a contradiction, but anyhow. These differences, however, are not statistically significant due to the extremely small sample of the Pali University students. The next question is about behavior, such as religious annual events. Purdue University includes American events, while Hokkaido University is limited to Japanese events. So some of the questions there are consistent and some are not. Here are the results of the responses to the items related to behavior. In the Purdue survey, we asked about specific ways of celebrating, such as celebrating by eating a special dish, having a religious ceremony, etc. But here we have summed up the result by grouping them together as did something to make comparison easier. It seems that both Purdue University and Hokkaido University celebrated the New Year. Students in Hokkaido visit the shrine on New Year's Day to pray for good luck in the new year. Students in Hokkaido visit graves during Obon, which is related to ancestor worship. This is something they can do because they are in Japan. It is interesting to note that while Purdue students participated in 80% of the Christmas events, Hokkaido students participated in only 3% of the Christian events. Of course, I'm sure Japanese students eat Christmas cake, but Christianity has nothing to do with it. As we will see later, the percentage of the Christian is not high in either university. What we can see from this is that students are influenced by the annual events of the region where they live. This questionnaire asks about beliefs. Moreover, it asks about beliefs in several religious traditions at the same time, which means that it is measuring the East Asian region setting. While it is possible to ascertain affiliation through this questionnaire in the case of Christianity and Islam, it is difficult to do so in the case of Buddhism and Shintoism, in particular in the case of Japan. As a case with students, they are not in a position to represent their family, and they have not conducted family ritual services as yet. Therefore, they are not considered to be answering affiliations as family faith in Buddhism and in Shinto. On the other hand, it is questionable whether this question directly asks about student faith. This line graph shows the degree of belief in Purdue University, Hokkaido University as well. Let's take a look at from the left. Students at Purdue University seem to have a higher level of belief in Buddhism and Shintoism than students in Hokkaido. In other categories, Purdue students also answered that they believe in other religions slightly more than students from Hokkaido. As far as Hokkaido students are concerned, their belief in Christianity is high. They are 70% and 50% who are Catholic and Protestant, respectively. However, this percentage is questionable. According to various statistics, the Christian population in Japan has never exceeded 1% of the total population. It is hard to believe that there are more than 10 times as many Christians among the young who are not very conscious of their faith as among their parents for a generation. The degree of belief in Confucianism and Taoism is probably something that students can confirm as they study the classical culture of East Asia. In contrast, the level of the Islam and folk religion is very low, which is not well regarded in school education and policy society. In short, this question is structured to ask about the level of faith in each religion, but I think it is difficult to say the result accurately shows the percentage of believers in each religion. This question about the body consciousness, I skipped to explain this question there. The results of the body awareness are shown in the bar graph. The number of the students who say that each item is important or is higher for students at Oakland University than for students at Harvard University, but this is not a significant difference. The most important point is the low body place on the worship of the God and spirituality here. This is characteristic of Japanese students and it's probably different from students in South Asia and the United States, I assume. This part is a break, in a sense, apart from the race issue. We are asking which you evaluate the government response to the COVID-19 for the students. Students in Hokkaido are also asked to evaluate the Olympic response due to time limitation. I just showed the case of Hokkaido and Japan. The figure above shows that most of the students do not think that the coronavirus will end next year. The chart below shows the responses to the question, do you agree with holding Olympics in the corona disaster? To my surprise, less than 90% of the respondents are against Olympic Games. Students thinking is almost the same as in the poll, according to the Asahi newsletter paper. The graph on the left is the public opinion poll. Blue is a hope for a normal event. Orange is postponement, and gray is cancellation. The event is now being held without an audience and as a state of the emergency in Tokyo. But the Japanese are still concerned about the spread of the infection after the Olympic Games. The picture on the right shows the activities of labor unions opposing the Olympic Games, shouting that corona measures needed more than Olympics. Although the number of infected people itself is small compared to Europe and the United States, Japanese people are more sensitive to the new coronavirus because of the low vaccination rate. Second vaccination rate is less than 20. I have not got shot yet. And the fact that Japan has the most cases and infection in this age. Okay, go back to the latest matters. I refer to the international comparison of cardio data from this slide. What is important in your life is a questionnaire. I categorize several items into 3 categories. They are religious matters, family-related matters, and God-related matters. First, the family is the most important factor in all cultures and countries. Second, there are 2 typologies, Indonesia and Malaysia. Islamic countries, they say every categories are important. East Asian countries, they say family is more important than religion and God, which shows family-oriented value system, including ancestor worship in East Asia. This slide shows the degree of ancestor worship. First, that all average scores are below 5 points in all countries. In that sense, Pali students are rather rational regardless of their country of origin. Second, although their scores are low as a whole, there are also several specific patterns can be observed by countries. In many countries, belief in benevolence exceeded belief in malevolence. On the other hand, Japan shows a unique pattern here, is that the level of belief in benevolence and malevolence are similar. It is a very interesting point for me to understand that Japanese concept of the ancestors to have ambivalent powers and the young generation believes in spiritual punishment by ancestors. Summary first. First, comparison of Japanese religious study among Purdue students and Hokkaido students. Students at Purdue University seem to be more religious than students in Hokkaido, especially in Buddhism and Shintoism. But this difference is not statistically significant. Second, comparison of Japanese religious study and social consciousness with other East Asian countries students. Except for Indonesia and Malaysia, East Asian countries show the familiar values and religious respect for the ancestors. Next, as to the index of the Asian multiple religious study, if I have another 5 minutes, I'll share my thought. Please stay. I'd like to show this table as a discussion material. This table shows the ratio of multiple believers. In China and Hong Kong, about 60% of the people do not believe in religion at all. In Singapore, South Korea, Vietnam, and Japan, the percentage of people who do not believe in between the 40% and 50%. Given the secularization of East Asian religious city, the effect of the ideology in China is likely to create about 10% more non-belief. The religiosity of believing in multiple religions at the same time is evident in Indonesia and Taiwan. Moreover, Taiwan has the highest percentage of the people who responded that they can believe in four or more religions. I'd like to share this fact, and I'd like to let the Professor Go-Shang Su to explain this mixture. This one chart also shows the ratio of believers of multiple religions. In addition to Indonesia and Taiwan, Japan also shows a multiple religious state. It means that believing two religions in Japan, everyone could assume that they are Buddhism and Shinto. For Taiwan, combination of the major religions to focal religions. However, this assumption was betrayed by the data in a good way. Let's just take the case of Japan. The analysis here was conducted with students from Hokkaido, Japan, because of the small number of students at Purdue University. The numbers in the right column of the table show the participant answered believe very much or believe somewhat in each religion. So Buddhism, which has most believers and is related to ancestor worship, is a major item of the multiple religious state. And Buddhism believers at the top answered that they also believe in or an average of 2.81 religions. And believers in shamanism at the bottom, the lowest, answered that they also believe in 8.57 religions on average. Next, explore the combination of the multiple religious states. Let's look at the left graph. Interestingly, 41% of those who said they believe in Buddhism also said they believed in Catholicism. Okay? Shintoism and Protestantism were the next. Look at the graph on the upper right. A similar table is made of those who said they believe in Catholicism. Normally, we would expect Protestantism to have the greatest affinity with Catholicism, but the most common religion is Buddhism. Of course, of those who said they believed in Catholicism, 95% said they believed in Buddhism as well. The graph below shows the result to all those who answered that they believe in Shinto. The combination of the Shinto and Buddhism is understandable. However, it is also possible to have multiple beliefs in religion. Christianity and Shinto. Religious scholars, when they look at this result, they will be amazed. Summary second, in a survey, the format of the question was designated to facilitate the plurality of such beliefs, which may have resulted in the higher percentage of the belief from each region. Conversely, if the survey had asked respondents to select only one faith, the percentage of the faith for each region would have been lower. The plurality of beliefs may be said to be the characteristic of East Asian region. However, further study of the question format is needed to confirm this fact. At the same time, it may be necessary to add a variety of the religious acts in addition to faith as the specific measures of religious safety. Considering from this perspective, we are faced with the problem to how to deal with a faith that engage in actions which relate to a particular religious tradition, but they are not aware of the adherence to that religion. In other words, how do we deal with cases where religious practice, faith, and even affiliation with a religious group do not coincide? In my opinion, the concept of the multiple faiths in East Asia is ambiguous and sounds excuse when we cannot appropriately describe the fact that religious beliefs, religious acts, and participation in religious events take place independently of each other, or they may or may not be related. At the same time, in this survey, respondents, especially students, tended to consciously or unconsciously confuse religious beliefs with the knowledge of religion and being familiar with religious tradition. Thank you for your kind attention. Okay, finish, that's all.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Sakurai. Any question, please? Oh, the 1:30, 10:30 already.
So, our discussion is okay. Yeah. There are other two papers.
Try to listen to the two more this presentation, and then we can have the discussions at the end of that. Okay, is that okay, Mr. Fry?
Yeah, okay. Great.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, now come to the fourth presentation by Professor Kushin Su. Please.
Sorry. Okay. Let me share my screen. Did I get it right, or did I get it reversed?
Yes. Can you make it more wider then? All right. Okay. Good.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you for the introductions. The title of my presentation today is Measuring Religious Belief in a Multi-Faith Context, an Item Response Theory Analysis. I changed the title a little bit from Measuring Religiosity to Measuring Religious Belief, because during the process I find it is a very difficult term to understand, religiosity. So I'm more comfortable with religious belief. Anyway, let me begin the presentation by showing the trend of the religious landscape in Taiwan. As you can see, there are 3 or 4 major, more or less, institutionalized religion in Taiwan, including Christian, Taoism, Buddhism, and folk religions. When I say Taiwan is a multi-faith society, by multi-faith, I didn't just mean that there are many different religions in Taiwan, but also there are multiple religious identities. There is sometimes no clear demarcation between different religions. particularly among the religions with close affinity, such as Buddhism and folk religion or Taoism. I understand this because whenever we conduct a survey, we have this question item on a religious identity. Sometimes we get the response. The respondents will feel confused sometimes about this nominal category and ask for clarity. That's also why you see there is a fluctuation by years, because there's a blurred distinction between these religious boundaries. Okay, under such there's a multiple identity or blurred distinction across religious boundary. This will pose a challenge to religious scholars to measure beliefs and religiosity correctly. And the usual solution is to come up with a large number of items and in a questionnaire to fit the unique characteristic or the feature of different religions. But this will certainly increase the number of the question item needed in the survey. But the scholar often have a tendency to put more than enough items in the questionnaire to make sure that we will have enough items to choose from when performing the item analysis. And also we know that if we add more similar or redundant questions, we will usually get a very high reliability. But there's additional problem because when you use index scoring, the meaning of index scoring is not really clear. For example, if you get 10 points out of an inventory of 20 items, we do not know which 10 items generate this 10 points. It can come from 10 items of relatively easy to answer, or it can come from 10 difficult items that require a certain level of latent trait to endorse it. So it is difficult to develop index that can be used across this kind of a multi-religious context. Okay, the alternative is to develop skill, okay, because skill usually conveys more information about a response pattern and the degree to which the different items reflect the latent trait we measure. However, the skills are difficult to construct. So they are rarely used in the questionnaire. A good skill is difficult to find. But IRT model is an ideal tool to measure this kind of latent trait with a very similar instrument that resemble a skill. But I found that although it is frequently used in education research, but there are not many religious studies use this IRT technique to develop skill to measure religiosity. Okay, in the following presentation, I will try to use the data collected by Feng Gang and the team from Purdue to develop a skill of religious belief and evaluate the psychometric property of this inventory. And one of the advantage of using this IRT theory to develop a skill is that the IRT theory does not require a national representative sample to be able to develop a good skill. For example, we don't really need a national representative sample to design a vocabulary test. We only need a group of respondents with different level of command of English. As long as they can cover the wide range of the diverse ability in the population, then it can be used to develop this skill. So the Purdue students represent different backgrounds, and they have different level of religious belief. and which is ideas to use as a small sample to develop this measure. Okay, I will follow the standard procedure for skill development. First, I will need to postulate a model for religious belief. This means that we need to have defined our concept clearly before we can we can know what exactly what we want to measure. Okay, this involves two processes. One is to collect enough items that relate to the latent construct that we want to measure, and the second step is that to make sure that all these related items are from a single dimension, which is the dimension that we want to measure. And then I will then perform these IRT analysis to estimate the parameters and use kind of the analysis, the information provided by this analysis for each item to evaluate whether each item fits into this skill. And finally, when I get a skill, I will validate this skill with some criteria of validity and to correlate with other constructs to see whether it makes sense. Okay, I will begin with a model of religion. And I follow Christian Smith's definition of religions in his latest books. He defined religion as a complex of culturally prescribed practice that are based on premises about the existence and nature of superhuman power. Religious people engage in complex of practice in order to gain access to and communicate or align themselves with this superhuman powers. Okay, in his definition, there are three major components. One is you need to have some kind of belief, premises about this superhuman power. And second, you will engage, if you believe in this superhuman power, you will engage in kind of a prescribed practice by a certain religion in order to gain access to realize some good outcome and to avoid some misfortunate or ill fate. And in his book, Christian Smith emphasized practice more than belief. And I quote in his text, he said, to properly define what religion is, we need to put on hold of our interest in ideas and belief of religious people and concentrate on their religious practice. Okay, he thinks that by the practice, religious practice can represent belief behind this, one's belief behind this practice. But although I agree that we should distinguish between belief and practice, but I somehow, as a reservation about, we can use a religious practice to indicate or to represent the religious belief. I follow his definition, but with a minor revision. I use a theory called DOB theory from analytical sociology, which decomposed the cause of religious practice or any social act into three components. One is whether you believe in something, and the second component is whether you desire to do this thing, and the third component is that whether you have the opportunity to perform whatever what you want to do. Okay, for example, in religious context, you can believe in the existence of a super human powers, but whether you have a desire to connect with this superhuman powers is a different story. Okay, if you think this is an impersonal God, then you might choose not to have any relation and just ignore it. This you may regard it as just things of order or natural rules. without any power to interfere or control it or to predict it. But on the contrary, if you believe that there is a personal God who is loving and caring, and you can pray and ask for a blessing from God, then you are more likely to engage in practice. You have a strong desire to act. You still need a resource and the right time and place in order to practice your religion. For example, for a group of Purdue students, if you are a Buddhist and you have no access to Buddhist temple, then it is very difficult for you to practice Buddhist ritual in the United States. On the contrary, if you are in Taiwan, and even though you don't believe in ancestor worship, but during the Ghost Festival, when family get together to worship their ancestors, you are kind of like forced or asked to perform the ritual, even though you may not believe the ghosts of your ancestor will protect you from the evil spirits. So belief and desire kind of like more closely relate to each other. But to have religious practice, you need to have extra resources or the right time or place. So I would suggest that it is better to separate the behavioral or practice part from the belief when measuring this religiosity. Okay, so in the following, I will use IRT model to measure both belief and practice separately and try to show you how these two concepts are conceptually related but are not completely substitutable or replaceable to each other. Okay, so my first mission is how to measure one's location in this unobserved latent dimension of religious belief or religious practice. To measure religious belief, I first put together all the items relate to the belief in the questionnaire. We have question about whether you think karma is real, heaven is real, and we also have question about whether you believe there are one God or many gods. And if you believe in one God or many gods, and we have a whole bunch of questions asking how do you feel that you are related to this God, whether this God is close or love, or he know your need and will guide and provide meaning for your life, and empower you, or even have a mission for you. So I put together all this related question to religious belief and perform a factor analysis to try to see whether it represents one single dimension of religious belief. But no matter what I do, I always get more than 2 or 3 factors behind it. But nevertheless, I just go ahead and proceed for IRT analysis because I think this concept, this item are related, and also at the end, I will reduce the number of items to a smaller set, and it's more likely that with a smaller set of items, it is more likely to come from one single dimension. Okay, IRT sounds very complicated, but it's actually quite easy to understand. The concept can be captured by this curve called item characteristic curve, which describes the probability of a respondent with a certain level of religious belief to give a positive answer to a certain question. For example, when asked whether you believe in karmas or not, with a very low level of religious belief, you will not endorse this item. But with a minimum level of like 0.39, then you will have 50% of the chance to say yes, I believe, to karma. So all the items can be represented by this item characteristic curve. And not only the probability of endorsing the item depends on the level of the religious belief of the respondent, but it also depends on the property of the items itself. And there are three properties of the item. One is how difficult is this item for respondent to answer yes. The other is whether this item has a discriminating power to distinguish between a low and high level of religious belief. And the third item is is not really relevant to measure religious belief. It's called guessing parameter, which represent the possibility of guessing the number of correct answers that you can come from purely guessing. But because religious belief does not entail any kinds of social desirability, there's no incentive for the respondent to lie or to guess the correct answer. Okay, so the first one is to show each item on this ICC graph. And some questions are easy to answer, like, for example, karma is easier. With a low level of religious belief, you will endorse this item. But some items are more difficult. For example, if you ever hear calling from God, you need a high degree of level of belief in order to endorse this item. So we can display each item on this ICC graph. From the left is the easiest one, and to the right is the most difficult one. And the second thing is that we can also calculate the discriminating power of each item. For example, this item is less discriminating because when you say yes to this item, karma is real. We don't know whether you have low or high level of religious belief. But when you say yes to the question of whether you hear the calling from God, we know you need to reach a certain level of religious belief in order to endorse this item. So this has more discriminating power than the karma items. So before we start to the data analysis, we need to have some kind of expectation about which item will locate in this difficulty spectrum. So you start from belief in nothing, and then start to believe in easier things to believe, like karma and impersonal power. And then you move to believe in existence of some kind of supernatural powers. And then move to believe in a concrete God. And then more difficult is to believe in a personal God rather than impersonal God. And then the most difficult one is to believe in God that not only provides protection or blessing to you, but also has a mission for you to, in your life. And the analysis show all those items kind of like fit into this this postulate dimension of religious beliefs. So as you can see, this is most easy kind of item to believe in, karma for Taiwanese students. And the more difficult one is to believe that God will punish or God will have a calling. And there's a gap from a belief in some kind of superhuman power to believe in a personal God. So there's a very huge gap between these two. And the Chinese student review a very similar pattern as the Taiwanese students. But because of the time limits, I will move on. And if we throw in all the questions to test on all the Chinese students, and I found that the Taiwanese student has the highest level of religious belief, followed by Hong Kong and Singapore students, and the student from mainland China has the lower score on the religious belief. And this skill does not apply well to Korean students because when you conduct item IRT analysis, the order of all this skill is different. For Korean students, it's easy to believe in God and heaven and hell concept like demon and fortune, but it's difficult for them to believe in karma and ghost. So this IRT model is, although it's population invariant, it's very cultural specific. We also test on how many items that we need. There are a very similar item that usually bundled together, like whether you believe in heaven will always go together with whether you believe in hell. So probably we will only need one item to represent this concept. So among all the 18 items, I choose one or two from each bundle of the similar item with similar degree of difficulty and come up with a 10 items model. And I perform a model test and conclude that a two-parameter model is the best model. And then I calculate with this 10 items, I calculate the religious belief, the score, and then look at the exam, the answer pattern of this 10 question. As you can see, the higher the score, the more items that you endorse. And there's a kind of a very natural and structural patterns of this relationship. But it's different from index that the same number of items that you check, yes, may give you a different score. It depends on whether the answer that you get fit into this continuum, latent continuum, or not. Okay, the final question is whether this item IRT score that I create has external validity. So I use a similar technique to come up with a score for religious practice. I measure whether people perform any kinds of religious practice alone or in a small group or in a public ritual. And then I correlate religious belief with religious practice. And there, as you can see, the two constructs are positively correlated, but it's not extremely high, which means that you cannot replace practice, or you cannot replace religious belief by practice at all. And if you closely examine the relationship between these two constructs, you will observe that there are a whole group of people who has high level of religious belief, but nevertheless, they perform rarely in religious service. And there are also another group of people who has high level of practice, but with very low level of religious belief. Particularly in Chinese students' case, there are a lot of non-believers who nevertheless has a medium score of religious practice. And if you identify those people by their religious identity, you can see that the red and black dot represent Buddhism and Christian. And they have more or less consistent between religious belief and behavior. And the green one is the non-believer. They are all low in terms of religious practice, score very low on religious practice. But the yellow dot is very interesting. They are the people, respondents, who claim they are not affiliated with any religions, but nevertheless, they say they are spiritual. And you can see the yellow dot is everywhere on this map. So the belief and practice doesn't really necessarily go together. Okay. Oh, my conclusion. The first conclusion is that finding from this analysis show that IRT can be applied to measure a very typical concept of religious belief in this multi-religious context. And it provides a deeper and more empathetic understanding of the instrument that we use to measure this typical concept. And the second major conclusion is that religious belief is only moderately related to practice, which suggests that not central to religious practice. Religious practice need not be carved to capture